Visual Arts and Media Studios in Milwaukee. I'm Charles Purcell. This is The Log. This week, Friday, is the big boycott, the 24-hour economic blackout. So, make your plans. Friday, February 28th. It's almost here. The economic blackout. You're not going to buy anything, large or small. Nothing in store, nothing online. You keep every dime in your pocket. It makes a difference. They will hear you. And nothing means nothing. No gas, no fast food, no candy bar at the corner grocery store, nothing. There's some difference of opinion on two things. One is social media use, and the other is so-called mom and pops. Some people feel very strongly that you should use your purchasing power to support small local business. I guess I kind of get that, but myself personally, I don't go that way. I think they can survive one day. In fact, if you want to, here's an idea. Just go in and contribute $5. But don't take that Hershey's candy bar, because that's a sale for Hershey's. So, no, I don't support the idea of spending money at local mom and pops if they're selling you corporate goods. It defeats the purpose. So, yeah, if you want to support them, just go in and hand them a 20. Here you go. I'm not buying anything today. Here's a 20 just for you. Put it in your till. I think that's a great idea. Okay, do that. And the other is use of social media. I think that every time you're scrolling on your phone, you're basically purchasing, because you're contributing to what the oligarchs and the one percenters want and need. It might not be your cash for that Snickers bar, but you are contributing to their business model in a big way. So I'm turning off my phone for the day. I'm going to post about what we're doing at midnight, and then 24 hours later, I'm going to post again about what we did. But I am off all social media for that day. And I personally think that's important. And I hope you agree with that. Beginning to see a few more people sharing this in their social feeds. I even heard it from a couple of kind of major players, people with names, quasi-celebrities. So it's more than just a few of us on the fringes. It's starting to get a little attention, and I think that'd be great. So do everything you can between now and Friday to make sure everybody knows what you're doing. Going to mention very quickly some other events coming up. There's some targeted boycotts against Amazon March 7th for a week, against Nestle starting the 21st for a week, Walmart April 7th for a week. Then April 18th is our second general blackout. General Mills, Amazon, Walmart, Target, McDonald's, all getting a week starting in April into June. And then July 4th, mark your calendar, make your plans, the Independence Day boycott. I love that idea, putting it on a holiday. Now, as I always say, boy, Amazon, Walmart, McDonald's, Target, General Mills, Nestle? Yeah, these people need to be on your permanent boycott list. Never again, while you breathe air on this earth, should you give any of those corporations a dime. Forever. Those are forever boycotts for me. And then just a reminder, mark on your calendar, March 14th. That's going to be huge. That's our first national general strike. We're not going to work. We're not going to school. We're also not going to buy anything on that day. We're not going to take off work and then just go shopping. No. Find an event, find a march. If you want to just sit home and read, hey, fine. But I think it'd be great if you took advantage of the day, you found an event, found some kind of direct action, and took part. So, mark your calendar, March 14th, National General Strike. Okay, something else we need to talk about here. The national press, and once again, I'm going to tell you, please get off corporate media. They're not doing you any good. Find independent, non-corporate sources for your news. Right now, the national press has moved on, mostly to, at least for the last 24, 36, 48 hours, they've moved on mostly toward Ukraine and Russia. And then the Joint Chiefs firings and the firing of the JAGs, the Judge Advocate General. And the whole mass deportation thing, a lot of what Musk is doing is finding smaller headlines further down the scroll. But my reminder to you is, one, don't let the national media lead you around by the nose as to what they think is important for any particular day. And second, and most importantly, it's all related. Don't get overwhelmed by all these different stories. Oh my God, first it's one thing and then another. I can't keep up. If you keep an eye on the through line, on the common thread, you won't feel so overwhelmed. It's all about the same thing. The Orange Menace wants to be a dictator, wants to be a king. There's another headline for the week. And he's doing everything he can to amass domestic, ethnic, and financial power. And where the international story comes in, well, he's just jockeying with his fellow imperialist autocrats to carve up the world. If you watched any of the highlights from CPAC, it's an international movement. This is old school fascist nationalism with the draconian cuts and the consolidation of power into the sole authority, the president or the chancellor or whoever. And then with each other, they're forging this new alliance on the global stage. A handful of powers are going to carve up the world, take the resources, run things, keep their ethnicities pure. They agree on a lot of things. They agree on the things they hate. They hate multi-ethnic, multicultural democracy. They love the same thing. They love power. They love control. So whether it's mass deportations, shakeups at the Pentagon, throwing Zelensky and Ukraine under the bus, Musk's chainsaw cuts to government, these are not separate stories. We need to understand that as we fight back. These are all part of the same authoritarian goal. Okay? Just mentioned what happened at the Pentagon. Admiral of the Navy fired because she's a woman. Chairman of the Joint Chiefs fired because he's a black man. Another member of the Joint Chiefs fired because he wasn't loyal enough. And what's really frightening, the very top officers of the Judge Advocate General's office fired because, of course, they're the legal watchdogs. What do you do when you want to break the law? Fire the watchdogs. Again, it's all related. Just like they're dismantling the FBI, the CIA, the Department of Justice, the Consumer Financial Agency, any sort of legal watchdogs that might slow down their plans to pillage, they are destroying. You want to break the law? First, you got to buy off the cops. And it's been scary enough so far, but we all knew this was coming. They promised it. They didn't hide anything. We all knew they were coming for the military as well. So they want to stack the military with loyalists. Okay, some good news. This was an interesting week. There seemed to be a bit of a turn. The Washington Post Ipsos poll that came out got a lot of attention. The numbers are really dipping for the Orange Menace and for his policies. In other good news, people are standing up. Protests at Tesla dealerships around the country and at SpaceX headquarters. There's been a call to divest from all things Musk. One example, the largest pension fund in Europe has sold all of its Tesla stock and is advising other firms to divest from Elon Musk companies. Yes, absolutely. Divestment. And we've had several now town halls where constituents are just really giving it to their representatives. The one that got a lot of attention, well, a couple of them, Republican Rich McCormick, I forget what state he's from. But, oh my gosh, he had a room full of angry people. Representative Glenn Grothman here in Wisconsin. Saw some highlights there. Up here in Oshkosh, town hall meeting. Just giving him hell. So, yeah, that's great. Demand that your representatives hold a town hall and then go give it to them. We've been talking every week about resignations. People who are resigning rather than participate in the ugly things they're being asked to do. the director of data science and engineering for the United States Digital Service, which basically is what Elon Musk has taken over now and is calling dodgy. Well, that person, Ann Marshall, resigned. A longtime veteran, civil servant, engineer, resigned because, well, here, I've got the quote here. These cuts were short-sighted, ill-informed, and indiscriminate. The government and the American people will be worse off from the loss of these people. So, yeah, she couldn't hang around and be a part of it. So, taking a moral stand and resigning is something we're seeing every week, several examples. The Social Security Commissioner resigned rather than giving access to dodgy boys to their systems. Now, there's one thing about these resignations, though. I'm not quite sure why they don't stick around, refuse to cooperate in the ridiculous things they're being asked to do, and then just force your bosses to fire you. And then take them to court, and I think maybe that'd be better. But then again, okay, well, I'm thinking out loud here. These are regular folks. These are regular working people. They're not making a whole lot of money. They can't afford to make a lot of noise and start up a lawsuit, and they just got to get their lives together and find a new job. So yeah, it does take a lot of moral courage to resign. I'm not dismissing that at all. I was just, like I say, thinking out loud a little bit here. Maybe it'd be better to force them to fire you and then make trouble for them. If you can do that, I still think that's a good idea. If you can't, I understand. These are just workers. And, that's what's going on with the chainsaw that Musk has taken to the federal civil servants. I think people are starting to understand when they hear these stories that these are just people. These are good people doing their best. They don't have any big agenda. They're certainly not rich. They're just workers. And to a great extent, really admirable people. Have you seen some of these interviews? They want to serve their country. They want to serve their fellow citizens. They want to do work that matters. Good for them. Plus, something that I never really thought about, but I saw in a recent report, only about 8% of the United States workforce, the private sector, are veterans, military veterans. You know what the percentage is for federal workers? It's over 30. Yeah, approximately 31% of these civil servants who are being demonized and vilified unfairly are United States military veterans. 31% of the people being fired indiscriminately and unlawfully, we should add. That's always a big reminder. Everything they're doing is illegal, unconstitutional. Yeah, 31% of them are military veterans. What else is in the good news department here? J.B. Pritzker, governor of Illinois, has gotten some headlines using some particularly tough language in his State of the State address. Senator Chris Murphy of Connecticut from the Senate floor has been using language that his colleagues are afraid to use, so he's getting some press. Good for him. Hey, it's not going to win the war, but yeah, we got to have at least some fiery rhetoric. I'll take it, thanks. And the Philadelphia Eagles, Super Bowl champs, have declined their invitation to the White House. No thanks. So good for them. Good for their ownership. Good for their organization. Fly, Eagles, fly. My friend Rick is a big Eagles fan. Oh, that great little exchange at the White House. The Orange Menace was meeting with governors, and the governor of Maine, Janet Mills, got into it with the Orange Menace because he asked her, you're gonna follow my executive order and bar trans girls from sports. She said, well, I'm going to follow the law. In other words, no, I'm not going to listen to you. I'm going to follow state and federal law. And the argument ended with, she said, I'll see you in court. So I've been begging for this for 10 years. People just need to stand up in his face like that. The famous, at long last, have you no decency. She was great. See you in court. Good for her. And in that little exchange, he said something really important that we need to take note of. She said, "I'm going to follow state and federal law." And he said, "Well, we are the federal law." No, no, no. Executive orders are not federal law. Executive orders have zero force of law on anyone except for those working directly under him in the executive branch. Executive orders have no force of law on anybody. Not you, not me, not the AP, not Google Maps. Nobody. The only sense in which an executive order carries the weight of law is if it's an order to individuals or agencies within the executive branch of the federal government. And even then, the order itself has to be lawful. It has to be constitutional, which almost none of these are. Well, we are the federal law. No, the Constitution says very clearly that only Congress passes laws. I'm not going to let any one of my listeners believe for a second that he has the constitutional power to create a law. He doesn't. The executive branch of the federal government executes the laws. The legislative branch legislates. See how that works there with the language? Legislators legislate. Executives execute. Faithfully execute the laws passed by Congress. Lord mercy. Hey, speaking of standing up, Bernie Sanders is hitting the road. He started this past Friday in Omaha, and then on Saturday he was in Iowa City. I'm not sure where he is going next, but he's on a nationwide tour to hold events across the country to rally folks against the massive dangers of Trumpism and to talk about the actions we can take to defeat it. So good for Bernie taking a leadership role. And I would really hope that other organizations, I'm sure they are, I'm not going to assume anything, but again, it's really hard getting press, so I'm really not finding it. But the Brennan Center for Justice, Democratic Socialists, Emily's List, Public Citizen, Move On, the Progressive Caucus, Media Matters, People for the American Way. There are all these organizations, these pro-democracy organizations. I hope they're all in red alert emergency mode right now. I hope they're dropping everything else, directing all their energies and hitting the road like Bernie and fighting this fight. I hope so. Like I said, I haven't seen any press on them, but I haven't seen much press about any of this. Bernie got one or two mentions. Good. As we talked about last week, we have to give them no choice. We have to give the media no choice but to cover us. We have to be that big. We have to become the story. And one last note on the media. You know who's not going to promote the boycott on Friday the 28th? You know who won't cover it? Or if they do, maybe they'll downplay it? I'll tell you who. Any media that pauses for sponsors. Any podcast, any broadcast, anybody who says, and we'll be right back after this short break. They're not going to cover the resistance unless we absolutely force them. And even then, they're going to downplay, or they're going to vilify, or they're going to distort. If you're consuming any media that stops for commercials, that stops for sponsor endorsements, change your media. It is against their interest. The resistance itself, and especially boycotts, general strikes, direct action, they are not on your side. I don't care if they feel like your friends. I don't care if it's Pod Save America or Morning Joe or whoever it is. If they're pausing for commercials, they're not on our side. I wanted to talk a little bit about CPAC. I mentioned it earlier. I'll just say real quickly, the big annual convention they have, just filled with lie after lie after lie. And I was especially struck with what I said earlier, how it's become a worldwide movement. Giorgia Meloni, the fascist from Italy, was there via Zoom. She addressed the conference. Turns out Hungary and Brazil have their own Don Juniors. The son of Orban and the son of Bolsonaro were both there addressing the crowd. Yeah, all of them. Erdogan of Turkey, Putin, Xi, these guys, Germany's AfD party. These are the new strongmen. They get along. This is the new alliance. And this CPAC thing has really become a worldwide movement. And before we leave CPAC, there was a lot of talk at CPAC about the third term and beyond for the Orange Menace. And, this thing started like they all start. Oh, it's just a joke. But we know, you and I know, they don't know how to joke. They're dead serious. There's already a proposed bill in Congress to allow for a third term. There were Trump 2028 stickers being handed out at CPAC. There's this GOP activist, white nationalist podcast host who's pushing the third term. There's this thing called, I think it's his, the Third Term Project. They had these big banners at CPAC which portrayed the Orange Menace as Caesar, as Julius Caesar, who of course declared himself dictator for life. The Orange Menace recently posted his little Napoleonic tweet. If you're saving your nation, you can't break the law, or something like that. So there's nothing to laugh about. We are often accused of being paranoid and playing into his jokes and trolling. No. This is nothing but dead serious. We've been saying it here for years, that if he got another shot at the presidency in 2024, and if he won, he will immediately start talking about 2028 and beyond. And that's exactly what this movement says. The third term project for Trump 2028 and beyond. I'm reading the banner. This very large sort of, 8-foot banner that was at CPAC. Okay, a couple of notes. We got the boycott coming up, several boycotts. And the reason this is so important, they're nothing. They're nothing without our money. They are 100% powerless. No speech is powerful enough. No personality, no strong man has an ounce of power without the money backing him up. No army can lay a finger on you. No cop can lay a finger on you without money. Their whole global plot goes down the toilet without our money that we hand over to them every damn day. Tell me I'm wrong. Give me an alternate scenario where any of them, the strongmen, their oligarchs, their sycophants, their toadies in Congress, tell me how they're going to exercise any power over you without the money that holds them up. And that's why the boycott is such a powerful message. Even if it's just for one day, it sends the unmistakable and potent message that we hold the ultimate power. We outnumber them by 1,000,000 to 1, by many millions to 1. They are literally a handful of wannabe strongmen. And I mean that quite literally. You can count them on one or two hands. Without their mountains of money to stand on, they got nothing over us. We can demonstrate that. That's why a boycott is so important. Even a one-day boycott. And then, as I would like to see, I'd like to see extended boycotts. I'd like to see lifelong boycotts. I'd like to see boycotts that ultimately topple them from their perch entirely. And we can come out of this thing with a new system. Now, that's something we'll talk about in detail in future conversations. But right now, we've got a date. It's on the calendar. It's Friday, February 28th, starting at midnight and then all through that Friday until midnight Saturday. Nobody spends a dime. And you do it loudly. You tell everybody and anybody within earshot what you're doing and why you're doing it. I'm just going to say this really quickly before we say goodbye for today. Wanted to talk about organizing and promoting. I'm not the expert. I'm not an expert organizer or promoter. I'll just say this much. I mentioned earlier there are lots of organizations already out there. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. Find an organization that exists. Also, this is an important note. Don't be afraid of the grunt work. In fact, take pride in the grunt work. It's so important. You don't have to be an expert on all the issues. You don't have to be this wild revolutionary. Organizations need different things. They need people to go get the coffee. They need people to stuff envelopes. They need people to answer the phone, to sit at the door and welcome people who come in. There's so much grunt work to be done. Anything you want to do, it can be so simple, and you're going to feel so proud. So find that organization. There's so many out there. Now, again, if you've got the smarts and the willpower and the fortitude and the resilience to go out and make something happen on your own or to start a new organization, fine. Wonderful. But that doesn't have to be you. I think I told the story before. When I first volunteered for the 1988 Jesse Jackson presidential campaign, I went in and the first few hours I was, stuffing envelopes or something until a little conversation started among the workers and like you would do naturally. Oh, what do you do? Well, they found out I was a graphic artist and I painted banners as part of my career before. And they said, oh, we could use that. So by the end of that day, I didn't even get through the first day stuffing envelopes. By that afternoon, I was in the back room painting these enormous banners. They even gave me a little budget. Say, here's the requisition form if you need some paints or brushes or, the banner material. Okay. So go do it. Just do it. Okay, so there you go. Mark your calendars. Looking ahead, July 4th, the big Independence Day boycott. March 14th is a very big day. That's our general strike. Nobody's working on that day. We're calling in, man. Other particular boycotts against specific companies. The People's Union USA has some information on that. ThePeoplesUnionUSA.com. And of course, the big one right now. Get ready. Friday, February 28th, 24-hour economic blackout. All right, we'll pick it up here on Thursday, the eve of the blackout. This and all other episodes can be heard at charlespurcell.com or on your favorite podcast platform. Reach me, charlespurcell@gmail. Follow on Facebook. Thanks to our flagship terrestrial station, River West Radio, riverwestradio.com. Thanks to Peter Donalds, who wrote and performed the theme song. All right, love you. See ya.